believe Trump is the most remarkable opponent to the existing establishment since Andrew Jackson.
Are you part of the establishment, Mr. Gingrich, though? Some people would say, as a former speaker, you would be part of the
No,
establishment.
I was never part of the establishment. That's the whole point. I mean, I went from Goldwater to Reagan to the contract with America. I took on George H.W. Bush when he sold out and broke his word on taxes. I was never acceptable to the Bushes because I'm not part of the establishment.
I guess some people would argue by virtue of becoming speaker, you then become part of the establishment.
That confuses power structure with establishment. They're very different. I was once part of the power structure. You could argue at one period I was.
Can you explain? Can you explain then? Because this is a topic that's interested me for a long time. I once did an article many years ago. What is the establishment? I called George Will. I went all around trying to figure out what the establishment.
I think there was a very funny article by John Kenneth Galbraith about the establishment, which met secretly in some hotel room or something. All of it tongue in cheek. It's a very funny article.
Because I mean, people obviously often speak of the establishment, and it's kind of a ill-defined, sometimes amorphous thing. What is this establishment? And if not a president who's in the White House or a speaker who achieves becomes speaker, if they're not part of the establishment, I guess who is part of the establishment?
Well, I would say two places to look are the novels of C.P. Snow, who was a physicist, parliamentarian, novelist, who captured brilliantly British politics and the subtleties of British politics, and the TV shows and books of Anthony Jay, who did Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, and was a chief advisor to Margaret Thatcher. And most of Yes Minister was actually modeled on specific real events in the Thatcher government. And if you watch Yes Minister, you'll understand exactly what the establishment is. In the British model, the establishment is the senior civil servants whose job it is to protect the system from elected politicians who don't know what they're doing. And there are scenes that are hysterical in which the senior civil servant is explaining to a rising junior civil servant, of course we don't tell them the truth. I mean, after all, who are they to know these things? They're not us. We are the mandarins who are supposed to run the place, and they're simply the figureheads. And it's brilliant stuff. So,
Mr. Speaker, just so I guess when you say establishment, some people mean like the GOP establishment. This sounds like what some would call the administrative state. John Bolton used to have a joke that he represents the American desk at the State Department during the George W. Bush years, meaning that everybody else was captured by whatever department that they were in. You mean kind of long-term civil servants?
But they're a piece of a relationship. It's the long-term New York Times reporter who is close to the long-term CIA agent who feeds him total lies about Russia, which the reporter then has to publish because, after all, we're all in this together. And so it's the people in the Pulitzer Prize thing who give the New York Times and Washington Post Pulitzer Prizes for publishing things that were absolute lies, totally false. But it was in a good cause. It's the 51 intelligence officers who signed a totally false letter about the laptop Hunter's laptop, because after all, defeating Trump was on behalf of a moral cause. So what did it matter that those of us who'd been entrusted with the nation's secrets were lying to our own country? It is a collective sense that there's an in and an out, and the in. Part of the in is the Whiff and Puff song and being able to be part of Skull and Bones. Part of the in is, it's no accident that you have a guy named Robert O'Malley who was in grammar school with the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of State happens to be in law school with Obama, and they all take care of each other. They're all part of the same group. They understand they're the ins.
I mean, would Bill Buckley be part of the establishment? I mean, he's obviously Skull and Bones type. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering is it a uniparty or is it?
Buckley's a good example, though, of how it begins to break down. Because Buckley was part of the establishment. That's why he could be Buckley. He both had his father's wealth and he had the natural respect of the old order. But Buckley was, in fact, trying to break out of the old order. I mean, when Buckley says at one point, I would rather be governed by any random group from the phone book than by the Harvard faculty, he's really beginning to break away from the system that had dominated America, at least from FDR on.
But then is it fair to say, Mr. Speaker, under how you're defining the establishment, this is where I think it's so tricky, is that, I mean, I would say that both Speaker Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, would not be part of the establishment because they don't come from the skull and bones kind of secret society.
Well, that's right. And the question is, and this is what marks the never Trumpers from the Trumpers. Okay, the never Trumpers really want to be the right wing of the establishment. They want to be the insiders. I mean, Bolton's a good example. I know John well. He's a good friend. But in the end, John wants to be part of them.